Hype, 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 hype! Hello, Internet, this is MattCast, coming at you for the first episode of Theory Hour, and never before have I been so freaking hyped about something that I am about the new trailer for Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. So I thought, why the heck not? Let's analyze the trailer and see what we can figure out from it. Okay, so the first and largest section of it is basically just a lot of fluff about the 20 years that Pokemon has been a cultural phenomenon. And really the most interesting part about it is youngster Joey over here, probably trying to catch his top percentage Rattata so he can call us about it in the new games. Seriously though, Nintendo, don't make that a thing in Sun and Moon. Please. The really interesting stuff comes when the trailer starts showing us things that directly relate to the Gen 7 games. The first brief shot we're shown is an image of what appears to be the new Pokemon Center and Pokedex. The Pokedex seems to have reverted back to the style seen in Pokemon Black and White as opposed to the more modern look of X and Y, and if you look directly above that, it seems to be a blurry shot of what the interface will look like. The new Pokemon Center design seems to have two concepts, the one on the top and the two on the bottom, though both keep a round shape as opposed to the more blocky form from X and Y. I like the idea of making it round, seeing as it opens the opportunity to make a visual reference to the design of a Pokeball, which the top concept design has taken advantage of. If the developers do decide to keep the round shape, I hope they go with something like the top design. That would be ballin'. The next major thing we see is several shots of vehicles marked with a red confidential stamp. That's how we know we're getting into the good stuff. The top right of the image shows what seemed to be a generic design for trucks, which I think would be mainly to add to the atmosphere of the new region and wouldn't have much actual functionality. Directly to the left of that we see a truck similar to the ones we just looked at with a Machamp, Wobbuffet, and Furfrou riding in the back, a young woman sitting in the passenger seat, and driving the whole thing. Oh god, is that a Ditto driving? Run, lady, run! It's a trap! Below that is a yellow truck that appears to be designed as some sort of emergency service based on the lights. This is further confirmed by a Blastoise sitting in a rig hitched to the back that, based on the image to the bottom left, would function like the ladder on a fire truck. This basically confirms that this is the concept design for a fire emergency service. I think it's pretty clever that they use Blastoise as the hose. It's a practical use for Pokemon besides battling, and I think it would be cool to see what they do with that idea throughout the games. Maybe they could use Mankey and Furfrou as service animals. Directly to the right of that is a red and white truck that, besides looking like a freaking Tylenol if you zoom out enough, appears to be some kind of ambulance. It would be cool if this were either a traveling Pokemon Center, or maybe the service that carries you and your fainted Pokemon back to the Pokemon Center after your team is entirely wiped out. It would at least be a more plausible explanation than you being able to scurry back to a Pokemon Center, shielding the exhausted and fainted Pokemon from further harm. If I can do that, then why can't I scurry to the next town? I've got the town map! I know where everything is! Tangent aside, the whole image shows that the next region will possibly be heavily vehicle-based, perhaps even allowing the player to drive around with their team in the back of a truck, like the trainer, in the image at the top. It would be a fun mechanic to play around with, and I would totally not use it to run other cars off the road. Definitely not. There's another little shot that shows one of the developers working at a keyboard. Ignoring the fun little Primal Kyogre figurine to the left of the developer's hands, in the back on another monitor we can see what seems to be the concept art for yet another vehicle, either driving on a road or parked at a house. There is greenery in this image, so I don't think that the region will be totally based on industry, and I personally get a bit of an island vibe from the whole thing. The island idea is supported further by the next image we see of the computer monitor that the developer from the last shot was working on. In this, the most prominent picture is of what looks like a tropical resort, but that's shown in more detail in the next shot, so instead let's focus on the other windows open. In the one at the top left, there is a yellow truck parked alongside some sort of living structure. I can't determine what it is exactly, but it looks like some sort of beach house, which further supports the island idea. To the right of that, there are two almost identical shots of the interior of a building, with only one difference. Let's play Spot the Difference. It's the wall right there, which changes from green to blue. Below that, there is a much more detailed interior design of a house, which may indicate that the developers are moving on from the X and Y engine and perhaps using an entirely new overworld graphics system. It would be fun to see how they can change up the appearances while still keeping the 3D graphics. To the left of that is a building with a darker aesthetic, but because it's mostly covered by the dude's shoulder, the most I can say about it is that it's brown. Finally, the picture just barely visible under the big one is of what looks to be almost a jungle, with greenery and a clear dirt path. Once again though, it's mostly obscured, so there's nothing I can really say about it. Next we move on to the main picture. I scanned this a whole lot for references, even looking closely at the road pattern to try to find something there, but the only things I could find that really stood out were the Spheal, Staryu, Chinchou, Magikarp, which isn't in this frame by the way, sorry about that, and Pokeball symbols on the building's front, the Pokeballs on the road, and the Horsey Fountain. Speaking of the fountain, did anyone else notice that the way the water is spouting is spitting it out of the fountain and onto the grass? Go home, fountain, you're drunk. It's pretty safe to assume that this building is a tropical resort, given the appearance of sand through the arch back there and the palm tree, not to mention all the water Pokemon symbols they're using. Perhaps this is the new region's version of the Oras Battle Resort. Or maybe it is the Oras Battle Resort after a bit of remodeling. Either way, it's the only further evidence that this new region could be island-based. The final bit in this picture is the trainer standing to the right. This actually made me laugh. The lady is going like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And the guy is standing there with his hands on his hips like he doesn't even see her, like, "Well, this is a fine day, isn't it? A fine day indeed." I don't know why I find that funny, I just do. Also sideburns. Those things are like David Tennant level. Anyway, it's possible that these could be the new player characters, but I doubt they're anything more than just concept art or filler art at this point. Moving on, we get to see a picture of a new Pokemon! See? Look at that. That's the new Pokemon. That's pretty cool. It looks like it's gonna be the bird Pokemon of the region, and if we study it closely, we can see that it has 3 toes facing forward and 1 backwards, which is called a Synodactyl if anyone's interested, tiny wings, and a sharp-pointed beak, along with a fletchling-style disproportionate body-wings ratio. In addition, it also has a pointed crest at the top of its head, something which I think a lot of people might miss at a brief glance. Taking into account all these features, it's pretty safe to say that this is definitely a new bird Pokemon, and not just a region-based variation of an old one. Also, fun fact, I did a little extra research based on these traits, and it seems that the species that this Pokemon resembles most closely, based on Google Images, is this little fella. Isn't he just adorable? But in all seriousness, I tried to pinpoint the species this thing could be based on, and I found that it most closely resembles the red-crested cardinal. Notice the single crest, the acinodactyl foot structure, the disproportionately small wings, and the somewhat pointed beak. This is only further supported by the next image, which shows the exact coloring of the red-crested cardinal being painted onto the new Pokemon. Oh, and here's an interesting bit. The red-crested cardinal, though being native to Argentina, Bolivia, southern Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, has been introduced to such regions of the world as Hawaii and Puerto Rico. And what are both of those? Islands. The evidence just keeps adding up for Gen 7 to be island-based. The final thing we see in the video is the 3DS being opened, which basically confirms that Pokemon Sun and Moon will be playable on the 3DS. However, I don't think that they will be 3DS exclusive since Nintendo seems to be planning to launch the NX later this year as well. I think it would be really amazing to have one of the launch titles for the new console be a fully fledged Pokemon game, and perhaps it could have some sort of connectivity with the 3DS version like Smash Bros did. And all logistics set aside, a core series Pokemon game in HD? Seriously, Nintendo, make it happen. That is something we all need, even more so than Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu still looks like it's gonna be the bomb, though. Aw, who's a cute little crime-solving heartless detective with no emotion left inside his shell of a Pokemon that's seen terrible, terrible things in his line of work? You are! You are! Hey guys, thanks for watching. So, what did you think of the first episode of Theory Hour? We've got quite a few more theories up our sleeves, so if you like the show, click that like button and check out our next video when we get it up. Also, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and maybe check out a few of the other shows on the channel. We've got MattCast, Ajax, comedy sketches, and even a whole other channel where we do gameplay videos. I really think you'll like all of them. See you guys next time, and remember, stay theory, my friends.